Welcome back to Radioactive Scale RC, and today we are finally going to get wired up the chassis with all the electronics for the D90 Gelande II build. So there are a few things we have to get done to finish off the chassis as I wait for the door hinge to come in from RC4WD Drive. I did get notification yesterday, which was the 13th of April, that it is in the mail. I got a UPS notification that it's in the mail, so that's a good thing. Should be here in a week or so, coming from California to Canada, so hopefully it's here next week and I can get the body done. And so we're going to get the chassis all buttoned up and finished before that piece comes in, so we can get this truck ready to go, this rig ready to go for its maiden voyage, and hopefully that'll be the 1st of May for scale day, RC4WD Drive scale day. So there's a few things we have to do. We have to install the, so let me grab it, it's out of my reach here. We have the steering servo to get in. So I have the Power HD 20 kilo 20 mg, which is 20 kilo steering servo to go in. And for that, you are probably going to need an extension to get it back to the receiver at the back. When they come RTR, they're already pre-wired, and the servos come with that extra long connection wire, where you're doing it as a kit. It doesn't. So I bought two. I got a 6-inch and a 9-inch, and I think the 6 will do, but we'll see. I've got a 6 and a 9. Hopefully that's enough. And then excuse my arm, then we have to install the ESC, and on the ESC I'm using the Hobbywing Quicrun Crawler 1080. We're going to have to do some wire work on that. It comes with I believe a T60 XT60 plug, and I use Dean's, so we got to change that out, and then we have to extend the wires. I'm assuming I'm going to have to extend the wires on that from the back. The ESC will go up in the back here, and we're going to have to extend the wires up to the motor. So I've got 14 gauge Fairmary wire kit, so I got wire ready to go. That just came in this week, so we're all set there. And then we have the motor, and the motor we're going to use XT60s. XT60s. We're going to connect an XT60 to the motor into the wire leads coming off of the ESC, so that if I have to quickly change out my motors, I can do that out on the trail without having to have a soldering a torch with me or anything. I can just use these connectors. So I'll be adding these to the other two Hackmotos. I've got another 45 turn and a 35 turn, and I have a 55 turn coming in, so I will have those all wired up for a quick change out. And I do have some stubbies. I did buy some stubbies with the wire already on it, thinking that might be how I'm going to go. So I'll have to put the motor in and do some measuring once I get the ESC set, and we'll be doing some of that. So you're going to need some of those if you're going to do what I'm doing. And of course I've got some Deans for the battery hookup on the ESC. So I got a bunch of Deans there that I'll use. Get those out of the way. You're going to need some solder, and I use the 6040 resin core high grade solder, so I have quite a large roll of that. Very expensive stuff. Flux, I've got some flux, and I've got some heat shrink. So I got my heat shrink kit, and I've got the servo arm horn ready to go for the front servo to put that in. And of course, in my last video I put up the purchase of my Spectrum DX5 rugged, and I've got the receiver, the RX, for that to install. So yeah, so that's what we have to do. I've got the screws here for the motor mounting and stuff, so that's all taken care of. And I've got the pinion gear, 14 tooth, that'll go on the motor to marry up with the spur gear, and that's what we're going to do. So my soldering station is at a different workbench. I've got it on a shelf set up, plugged in, ready to roll. So I've got to do some resetting, and once I get that and the camera moved and set up, we'll get back to the soldering. Oh, and also in your soldering, either have a second-hand rig set up, or what I have is I have the HR soldering jig, I guess. It holds all different types of connectors, so that you can do hands-free soldering. So we'll get into that in a second. We'll get set up on the other bench, and we'll start to probably with the steering servo actually is what I'll do next. I'll get the steering servo in, get that out of the way, and then we'll start working on the motor and figuring out how much wire leads and changing out the plug to a Dean's and connecting the XT60 plugs to the motor and the ESC ends. Alright, so bear with me guys, I'll get reset and I'll be back. Okay, so we're back and we're gonna just get right into installing the steering servo, so we won't waste much time here. It's not a really hard job to do, but we will get right into that and we'll start getting that installed. Kind of lined up, so that's the servo, and we will route this probably this way through underneath and over top of the motor mount. Once we get the motor in, we'll have a better idea, and yeah, we're gonna be tight on space, I think. We'll see. I'm getting to be about there, and I need probably at least another 6 to 8 inches, so the 9-inch might work. Okay, I will get set up for starting the soldering, and we'll start with the ESC, and we'll pull the plugs off of that and put on the new Deans, and then we'll kind of get it in where we want it and see how much wire we need to add to get to the motor. So we'll go from there. So bear with me guys, I'll be right back. Okay guys, I think I'm all set up to get soldering. So we've got the ESC, we'll get that out of the box in a second. We've got the track power soldering gun. This is a fabulous soldering gun. This is just of course a soldering end. Chisel tip is what I use. And the control panel is a little higher. I'll just move the camera here so you guys can see that. Just give me a sec. So our control panel is up there, right up here, and we'll fire that up. Get her up to, and I have mine set for 750, and it goes pretty quick. I'll just move the camera up to that so you guys can see that. So there, it's kind of flashing on you a little bit in the screen, but we're just turned on and we're at 480, 500, so it goes really fast. It's an excellent soldering station. I recommend this to anybody in the RC world. And it's nice that you can have your control box somewhere else. You've got a long cord and a nice holder here for your soldering tip. And and your sponge, of course. It's all wet, ready to go. And we'll get back set up here where I was and get you back down. Hopefully this angle is going to work. We're going to try this. I'm really close to the camera, so my arms might get in the way, but we'll see. We'll get the soldering guns warming up, and let's get into the ESC. So we are gonna first probably do the Dean's plug, and then we'll have to bring the chassis into play and get the ESC kind of where we want it, so that we know how long of the wires we're going to need to extend to the motor, and then the wires coming off the motor. I'm not sure if these are going to work. They're pretty short lines, like maybe 2 inches, so I'm not sure if I'm going to use those. I got them, just thought maybe they'd be easy for putting onto the motors, but we might have to just do our own, and we'll see what it looks like when we get everything set up. So we'll get this ESC out. So for those of you that have never used this is a fabulous crawler ESC. It's programmable. It comes with a programming card, which is right here. Alright, so you can program your drag brake and such, and there's your connection wire, and it comes with some tape, so your servo tape or your mounting tape, some heat shrink. So they expect you to change the plugs, some instructions, and they actually give you a nice sticker sheet here. So you get a nice Hobbywing sticker sheet in there also. So we're just going to put that aside for now because I don't need those. And the control card we don't need right now. That's for when we set it up, which I'm hoping to fit in this video. It might be a little bit longer of a video with all the soldering and stuff we have to do, but it is what it is. So there's your buttons stuck on the plastic. So there's the ESC. So we're going to, these are of course your motor leads. Your yellow is your positive, your blue is your negative. You just know that by the ESC tells you that right here. You've got positive, negative, and it's got the XT60 connector already on, and it's a nice connector. It's got that pull down. I don't know if we can get that off of there. We should be able to, but I usually just snip and then put on a Dean's. And on the chassis we don't really need a whole bunch of extra wire because the ESC is mounted pretty close to where the battery will be, and of course you have the battery lead which will reach it for sure. So I might shorten them up a little bit. We'll just do a test fit here, and I'll mark them, and then I'll come back and we'll cut these off, and we'll start soldering up and tinning up the ends and start soldering up the new Dean's plug on that. Okay, so I'll be right back. Just give me a sec. Okay guys, so I just kind of gave it a quick measure, and I think I'm only going to take about an inch off, and if I need to take more I can resolder again. So of course there's no power. Normally you would do one at a time. If this was on a battery end, you would clip one at a time, solder it, heat shrink it, or tape it off if you're using this type of an end with the cap that pushes on, which is a nice actually end. They're really nice. They're expensive, but I'm a Dean's guy for the batteries, so I'm just gonna snip both here because I don't need to worry about battery power. So just snip off both at the exact same length here. So that end to me is worthless now. Okay, I'm not going to use that again. So then we will get stripped, and I turned my iron off for a minute there while I was getting set up. No sense having it go, so you don't need to strip much. You just want to strip enough that you can tin, so that's about all that I take off. About the exact same that they've got off on theirs, and I think those are, nope, they're not. Yep, they're pre-tinned. So these are pre-tinned. Okay, so we'll do the black, and we'll make sure we're getting 14 gauge. Just again enough to do a bit of tinning. So then I just take the wire and I kind of give it a bit of a twirl to get everything together. Hopefully you guys, I'm not getting, this is the best camera angle I can get on this workbench for you, so I apologize if my hands are getting in the way, but you just give it a little twist, and this is how I do it. Okay, and you've got your heat shrink. Don't forget to put your heat shrink on first, especially if you're using a plug like the Deans and you're going to be using the male. Your batteries are the female, so you got to make sure to use the male. And I should mention that it's a T, so if you look at it that way, it's a T. This is your positive, this is your negative. And if you're unsure of that, just grab a battery that has Deans. So if I grab this battery, you can see the T. And this is a Gens Ace Shorty 5000, so 5000 milliamp. I think it's 50 cell. You see the T, and then you just look at the wires. So the wire is the T. Top of the T is your positive, and the bottom of the T is your negative. Okay. Okay. So, and we also have our jig, but we're going to tin our wires first. So we just twist them a little bit, and I got my flux. I just put a little bit on. Make sure I've got both my heat shrinks on, and I'll push them all the way down out of the way. Okay. And then these are really fine wires, so the 14 gauge is perfect size. That's what's coming off your ESC, so that's what I use to extend if I have to. Like these are 14 gauge, so when we extend we'll be using 14 gauge. Exact same gauge. Okay, so now we're going to tin these. So we've got the iron warmed up. Get some solder ready. I'm trying to do this beside the camera, guys, so I'm going to try and kind of move in behind it a bit. Hopefully if I bump it, I apologize. I just want to kind of, yeah, like I did right there. It's on a tripod, so I bumped it, of course. I'm just going to move it a bit. And the legs of my chair don't bump it. So, okay, so I got my flux, and I will just give it a little. Just rub it in, and then I take my fingers and I squeeze my fingers around that flux just to get it moved around the wire a bit. And I dip that wire in, and this is where a third hand comes in handy when you're tinning, but the jig doesn't help you with that per se. But what I do is there's this section here on the jig, and I open it up. Once I get this open, and I can turn this. So what I do is I take this and I just pull it down onto the wire, like kind of like so, and your wire kind of stands up as long as it holds it there like so, and then you can tin. And all that is you take your iron, excuse the cord, I'm coming on the back side, you're ready to go. You pre-tin your iron, and then you just get some solder going into that, and it'll soak in there because of the flux. So you're just pre-tinning it, and don't hold it on there too long because it gets pretty hot. Okay, and I see I need just a little bit more. I'm always a little heavy sometimes on the solder, but more solder is better than not enough in my eyes. Make sure you get it underneath, and that one's pre-tinned. Okay. Give your iron a wipe, just get off any excess that you don't want on there, and just make sure, like I said, always pre-tin your iron by putting solder on it first, and you don't overheat your wire. So that wire got a little frayed. We're going to just put on a little bit more flux. I usually do one at a time. It's the first time I've done this and recorded at the same time, so hopefully it's giving you guys enough info, especially if you're not used to soldering. And it does take practice, but it's not hard. It's not hard at all. I haven't been doing it a whole lot either. I was more a nitro guy and a gas guy, so when I got back into electric when I was a kid, I did a lot. You see how it just hopefully you guys can see that it just the solder just sucks right in there, and that's what we call tinning. The wire just sucks it right in because of that flux, and that looks good to me. Okay, so we're pre-tinned on the wires. See, all the way around. Both our battery wires are now tinned all the way around. They took in all that solder into the ends. Okay, now we need the jig for the fitting for the Dean's plug. And again, remember, top part of the T is positive, bottom part of the T is negative. So we now just, this is what plugs in. You can tell that your shorter leads, okay, the shorter leads are your soldering leads. Okay, and we put that into our jig like so it fits right in our jig, and I leave it up just a little bit. Tighten down your jig, and then you are set to solder. So you've got positive, negative. Okay. And how I do it normally, you guys might have a hard time seeing it, is I do it this way for that side, and I go to the outside of the plug. Sorry, I do it to the inside of the plug. No, I don't. I do it to the outside of the plug. And this is where again that third finger would come in handy. But what I do is I take my iron to make it easy for me. I get some solder onto the end of the iron, and then I take my wire and I hold it on just enough to get that solder to melt, and I make sure it wraps. And we got a bit of a fray there. I'll fix that with the iron. Try not to stay too long on that because those plugs will melt. The plastic on those plugs will melt. And we're looking good there. Just check the other side. Yeah, we're going to put a little bit of solder there. And it takes practice to get it just the way you want it. Yeah, see? And we let it go. Gotta reheat that up. There we go. Then I take a pair of pliers and just make sure I have no frays coming off of that solderer. I let it cool. I give it a tug and it's moving the plug, not the, so we're good. You can move down your shrink if you like at this point. This is how you would have to do it if you're doing it on a battery before you cut off the other side, and then we do our heat shrink and we're good. So there's one side done. Okay, one side finished. And then for the negative, I'm a lefty guy, so I'm sorry. We'll move to this side. I like to just let that plug cool a little bit before I move on to the next one. The steel helps that. It absorbs a lot of the heat. The jig will absorb a lot of that heat too. but I think we're good. Again, we're going to just put some solder on, this time to the pin. Usually I just tin my, and get her on there, heat her up, wait till your solder, you feel your solder melt, let it go, let your solder cool, and you're done. And then we'll take our heat shrink, move it up, and we're good. I got no frays there. Actually, that's a nice solder job. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me take it out of the jig. So that's a really good clean solder. Adhered well. Perfect. And we run our heat shrink up. And we get the lighter. And we do that heat shrink. And we are finished. Just make sure we got that all covered. Do up the wire a bit, and voila. So now we're all set for the battery. Next, we got to figure out how much wire we need to add pardon me, to reach the motor, and then figure out how much wire we're going to have coming off the motor with the TX60 plug on it, and we're going to put a TX60 plug on the end of the motor wires. So I've got to get set up for that and figure out our wire distance and stuff, so I will do a little bit of off-camera work and then I will be back. Alright, just hold on and we'll be back in a few secs. Okay, so what I did is I put the ESC into the chassis where it's going to be mounted, and I am not going to have to extend, I'm not going to extend these wires from the ESC. I'll put the additions and the other connector onto the motor. These actually run pretty much exactly where I want it to go, so we're just going to put the connector right onto these, and we're going to use the XT60 connectors. And for this one, again, we're going to use the opposite. We're going to use the smaller connector, the female, to connect to the battery. So this connector is going to go onto here, and on this connector they are marked. I don't know if you guys can see that. So there's your positive, which is on the flat end, and your negative is on your rounded edge. So these are a lot easier to solder because they have a little cup, which we will be putting some solder in there, and these will slide right in there into that solder and we will connect. Okay, so I will get the heat shrink on, and I also will be adding a couple extra pieces, and I'll show you that when I get back. I don't want to bore you guys with that. I'll have it all set up ready to go, and then we will solder on this connector, and then we will move to the motor and get the length of the wires I need for the motor, and we'll get that connector, and then we're all soldered up and we can start putting into the chassis. Okay, so I'll be right back, guys. Okay, so I'm back, and what I did is I got my heat shrinks ready to go for each wire, and I also added heat shrink down the line. I like to keep my wires neat and tidy in my rigs, so what I do is I put a couple heat shrinks on there and bring those two wires together so that when I'm routing them up the side of the chassis rails, they're nice and neat, and then I just have to use a zip tie, excuse me, to attach them to the rails, and they're nice and neat and out of the way. Okay, so that's how I do it. So they're ready to go. Now we have to pre-tin our connector. So we're going to use our jig again, and what we're going to do is we're going to just put some solder into those holes and pre-tin those, and I will show you that. So we use the jig again to hold that connector, and I like to hold it up just a little bit, and this way I can see into there. So I put it into my jig, and then we're just going to put some solder into those holes. The iron is hot and ready to go, so hopefully you guys will be able to see kind of what I'm doing here. And we just, again, we're just going to get some solder melted into that hole, like so, and it goes down into that hole. And we'll do the next one. So I just start the solder off and I kind of feed it down into that hole, and if it doesn't go all the way in, just heat her up and then it's down into that hole. And these wires are already pre-tinned, so we don't have to pre-tin them. So again, negative to the curve, positive, and coming off the ESC, it's very easy to tell. You just look where your red wire is coming out, and it's actually marked on the ESC. So your yellow is your positive and your blue is your negative. So we'll start with the positive, and all you do is we get it, that solder heated back up again, and just put your iron on there so that it heats up. And I probably should have tested to make sure that fit in there. So you got to really get it warmed up and keep it hot. And you push it in there like so, and then you let it cool down. You get a little bit of solder coming out of there, but now you're in there nice and tight. And we'll go do the other side. And our ESC is ready to go and ready to be installed. So that's pretty much it for how I do it. The next is the motor and figuring out how long of wires we need to add to the motor to have these connectors connect. So I will get the chassis all set up and measure my wires, and then we'll get the connector put on and get the wires put onto the motor. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, so we put the ESC back in and we have the motor mounted in the chassis, and we did some measurements, and I needed about 7 inches of wire to come off the motor to reach that plug on the ESC. So we took our lovely free Furmary wire, and I've got yellow and blue, so I kept with yellow and blue, and we cut off 7 inches. We'll get it connected to the plug, and I did not get any heat shrink ready. I'll do that right now. And I've got some here. I just got to cut one. It's very handy to have these heat shrink kits. They're just awesome. I can't have yellow to keep with yellow because it's too small, but that don't matter. I don't care what color I use as long as we get it right. So we got the heat shrink ready, and again we have to tin these wires. shrink wants to shrink. So we'll let that cool for a sec. And then we'll get our heat shrink on. And then all it is soldering onto the motor, and we're set to get everything plugged in and get the receiver in and get the servo centered. And we're pretty much there. Feels cool enough now. Heat shrink likes to shrink real quick. So we'll get that down over our connector. Down into the hole a bit there. Same with the other one. Where did it go? Do I need a new piece? No, we should be good. Didn't shrink too bad. Shrunk a little bit, that one. Trying to put it in there hot. Yeah, we might need a new one. I don't want to get. Oh, no, she's moving down that connector a bit there. Okay, I think we're good. Got our trusty old lighter, and we'll get that heat shrink done. And voila, we have connectors. So there we go. So yellow to positive, blue to negative, and we have our connector, and we got a good connection there. All right. So now it's just a matter of doing the motor, and I will have to probably, I've got it in the truck right now. I might just leave it in there because I'm going to solder on the same higher side, and we'll get that done, and then that's pretty much it. So give me a sec and I will get reset up for that and move the camera a little bit so you'll be able to see that. Okay, so we got the connector in. I'm not sure if you guys can see that from there, but connector is connected to the ESC right now. It's going to look like I'm going to get it routed really nice, I think. I think it's going to be good where I've got it. And here's our two wires. This is the negative side. A lot of motors will have it marked, so positive, negative. You can put it on any one of these four posts on each, well, the two posts on each side. So I'm going to put them on the top posts. Right here and right here, and that's where those two will be soldered on, and then we will be all set. And then I can have extra motors done up with the plug, so if I have to change them out on the trail, I can by just undoing the plug and plugging a new one in. So I think that's going to work out really handy. And yeah, so let's get that done. So I've already tinned these, they're ready to go. It's just a matter of getting them onto the motor. So let's get that done, and then I can start working on routing the wires and getting everything hooked up and the receiver in, and then we can get the servo centered and hooked up and ready to go. Hopefully we've done it all correct. So let's do that. We've got, like I said, I've got everything tinned already, but I'm going to pre-tin the connector. And that's it. So we are wired for the ESC and the motor. We're all wired in. Now it's just a matter of getting my wires all buttoned up and running the servo extension, which I got the servo coming here. I should have a 9-inch, should probably do us. We're going to run all the wires down the same side, and that should keep my chassis nice and neat, and we should be almost ready to roll. So there we have it. So the next step will be getting all the wires routed and that, and I'll get everything set up for that, and we'll come back and do that. Alright, so we'll get everything cleaned up here, the solder cleaned up, get myself situated for just running wires and setting up the ESC and putting the receiver in, getting all that powered up. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so we got everything buttoned up and put into the chassis, and all the wires tucked away. Everything is put away nice and neat and tidy. Our connector is here, and I've already pre-fitted the body just to make sure the connector wouldn't be in the way of anything, and it's not, of course. It's nice down the rail, So the wires run alongside into the motor. I can switch that out if that motor goes on me, or I want to change to a different turn motor. I'll set up my other motors with the same length and connector, and I'm good to go. And then I can change out real quick on the trail without having to piss around with the soldering or nothing. I've got a battery in. ESC is in. Hopefully you guys can see that. My radio's kind of in the way there. ESC is in, receiver's in, and binded. I bound it with the remote already. There's tons of videos out there, so I didn't want to waste your time with that. I've got the power button here loose. I'm probably going to route that. I think I need it on the bottom. With the body, I won't have any way of getting to it if I put it here. And this gives me another area for adding on winch controller or something. If I decide to go with the winch controller, I could put it up on the servo also. There's enough room under the hood for that, but I would think it'd be good there, because I will probably hardwire it into the Dean's connector we put onto the ESC, so that it's powered at all times. I haven't decided which one, if I'm going to go with the remoted winch yet from RC4 drive, or just the regular winch that'll run off the power from the ESC. Both of them can run off the power of the ESC. You just have to, I'll have to pull this off, the heat shrink off, solder on, put the heat shrink back on, and connect the wires to that. That'll power the receiver box. So that'll be pretty simple. So all that's really left to do is, set up the ESC, get it set up with the radio, and then put the controller box on and do our settings. And I've done it, I've got this in other trucks, so I will probably set it to the way I've had it before and try that first, and then I'll have the control box with me when I take it out, and if I want to make a change to it, we'll do that. So let's just get that done, and we'll be all ready to go. So like I said, I've already bound to the radio, and I noticed in my last video of opening this radio that the closer I got it to my mic, it caused interference with my mic, and the volume and the sound was really bad. So I'm going to keep it away. There are tons of videos out there on how to bind this to the receiver, and how to get your settings and set up to get your ESC. So I won't bother with keeping it close, because I don't want the audio to get all buggered up in this one again, like I did the last one. So we'll get that started. So you turn on your remote, and we hear the ding. We'll keep that away from the microphone that I have on my GoPro. We will plug in our battery, and the setup for this is pretty easy. It's not hard at all. So we got our juice. I'll get the truck a little bit further, and let me see if I can prop that up for you somehow here. Let's grab this box. We'll use this box and prop that up. The ESC box, so that you can see the light. So what you have to do is, you've got a set button here, and your remote has to be on, and your throttle has to be at 100%, your throttle throw 100%, and everything else at 0. Your throttle trim at 0, all your trims at 0, and your throttle throw at 100%. So you just hold both buttons down, and you'll get the 3 blinks. Okay, and your first setting is neutral. So you just leave the remote, you hit the set button once, you'll get a beep, then it's full throttle. Oh, something went wrong there. Something went wrong there, so we got to power off. And again, both buttons. Okay, there we go. And then we hit once. You hear the beep, 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 beep. I probably just didn't hold it long enough. So neutral. Once. Full throttle. Hit the button. And then brake. Once. Release. Something's gone wrong there again. No, it's still beeping. So we're going to power off again. Not sure what's going on there. I've done this a few times and I've had no problems. So we'll hold. Okay. Set button once. Full throttle once. Brake. Then it's just supposed to set. I'm not sure what's going on there. So we'll power it off again. I don't know what's going on, why it's not working. Throttle. In neutral, you hit. No, I'm not sure. Something's not going right here. So we're going to power off. Power back on again. Okay. Full throttle. Then you hear the 3 beeps. Full brake. Set. Well, I'm not sure what's going on. Just give me a second and I will just double check the instructions, but I'm pretty sure I'm doing it the right way. I'll be right back. Okay, so we were doing it right. I'm pretty sure I had it right. So I think what I was doing was holding the set and the power button too long. You have within 3 seconds to let go and make your first input into the calibration setting. So we'll try it one more time here. So we hold both down until we see the light flashing. Let go. And you go full, or you leave it at neutral. Click again. Blinks once. Full throttle. Blinks twice. Brake. Blinks 3 times and let go. And we're good. So I think that's what I was doing wrong, is I was holding down the 2 buttons too long. You have within 3 seconds after getting the first blink to let go and do your first input, and then if you didn't make it in that time, it'll give you those extra tones. So we should be good now. We're on and powered. So we'll give it a slow, and we see that our motor is backwards. So our motor wires are hooked up backwards, which is kind of weird because I went power plus to plus, negative to negative. You can reverse it on the receiver, but boy, I love that. So I'm gonna have to fix that. But before I do that, so we're going in the wrong opposite way here. So we'll just go right into programming card next, and we'll do the settings that I like to do, and we'll go through them and just get this done quickly, and then I will fix those afterwards off camera. You don't need to see me solder those again. I'm not sure why they're in reverse. I did go positive on the positive side and negative on the negative side, so I'm not 100% sure why it did that. I never had a problem with that before, but no big deal. It doesn't hurt anything. Okay, so you have to power off your ESC. So make sure you're powered off, and you've got one end that goes into your card into this side, of the you got two inputs there, and it goes on this side, and then also plug it into the, make sure your negative and positive is correct and it's marked on the ESC. Okay, you plug it in and then you power up and you're into your settings. So setting number 1 is your running mode, which is you have a couple options. You've got forward, back, and you've got forward, reverse, back, and forward and reverse. I prefer to go on 3 because on number 2 you have to fully be stopped before. It's like a double click to get into reverse, from reverse to forward or forward to reverse. When you're in 3, it's forward and reverse, so there's no stopping in between. You don't have to stop in between. So you select your value, and I want 3, and then you go OK, and then you're good. Number 2 is battery type, and I'm going to be using LiPo. So 1 is LiPo, 2 is nickel metal hydride, which we're not going to use, so we're good there. We can go to item 3. Item 3 is cutoff voltage. You have disabled, auto, medium, auto low, auto medium, and auto high. And I think auto low is like 3.2 or 3.3 volts. Auto medium is 3.4 or 3.5, and I think auto high is like 3.8. I like to keep it on 3, which is like 3.4. I'm okay with that. That gives me enough time to change our battery and not worry about draining my LiPos too far and damaging my LiPos. So I'm good with that setting at 3. Next item is 4, which is your initial start force. This one I've played around with before, and I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like the setting too much, but I go with 2%, and your start force is how much juice, how much the motor will go right off the get-go. And I'd set it 3, and I'm okay with that. I usually go 2 at 2%, but I'm going to go to that anyways. And then this is a different setup. I'm used to this in my axial SCX10 too, so it may be a little different with this truck. So I'm going to go and put it back at 2 and go OK. And I might change that because once I get used to this truck. Your max forward force, how much force you have coming through the battery and the ESC power to the motor. That setting, I also keep it on 2 on my other trucks, which is 50%. I'm okay with it at that. It's driver preference, of course. So we're going to go to the next item, which is item number 5. And if you flip your controller over, sorry, I'm one step ahead of us here. Number 5 is your max force, and I like 50%. So no, sorry, I like 100%. So I'm going to leave it on 4, which is 100%. And our next item is 6, which is the max reverse force, and I like that on 50%. I don't want it going too fast in reverse off the get-go. I want to be able to tweak that later on if I need to with this truck, but I don't think I will, as it's a trail truck. I don't plan on doing a whole lot of big crawling with it, so we're going to leave it at that. And next value 7 on the back, which is max brake force, and I like to have mine set at, I believe, 100% again, and we're at 100%. Yep, nope, we're at number 9 is 100%. Yep, so we're good there. Number 8 is our initial brake force, and I like to be at 6.25%. I've tried it at 0, and I've tried it at 12.5 on my other trucks, and I didn't like either one. I went in between, and I seem to be okay with that. It's just my driving style. How much braking force as you're pulling on the controller. So I'm going to go to 2. We're going to go value, and we're going to go OK. and that'll go to 2. Then we'll go to value 9 is drag brake. Now this one's kind of again driver preference of how much drag brake each person really likes to have, and I like a lot of drag brake. I don't want my truck going out of control on big hills and stuff, so I always go 100%, and that's number 9, and it's set to number 9. And 10 is our drag brake rate. That one, it's kind of hard to explain. There's like 9 levels, and I went kind of half medium, and I usually keep mine on 5. So I'm going to change that to 5. It's kind of in the center of all the settings for the drag brake rate, so I'm going to keep it there. Go OK. Item 11 is our neutral range, and that's in your milliseconds. And I still trying to figure this one out. It depends on your driving style again. But I think I'm going to keep it on 4, and I think on my other trucks also, and 4 is 0.05 milliseconds, so we're going to leave that there, and it's something that you can play around with and tune to your driving preferences. Number 12 is our start mode punch, how much poof she goes on the get-go. And we're set to 5, and I left that on my other ones, and 5 is level 5. So again, that's kind of medium, the mid-range. So those 2 settings I left the same as it does from the factory. Your frequency, I go to 16K. It's set at 8K. I go to 16K, and it really quietens down the whine of the speed controller. That's what the frequency gives you, that whine. If the lower you go, the more noise you're going to get out of your ESC. So I max it at 16K, and it really quiets down your ESC. You don't get a lot of squeaky noises from your ESC. So we're going to go OK. And try that setting, play with that setting, and you'll see the difference between the 5 settings of how much it quietens down. The higher you go, it really quiets down the whine in your speed controller. Number 13 is your PWM frequency. Or sorry, we just did that. Number 14 is your BEC voltage. I have a power HD that can give me up to 6.6 volts. It's set to 1, which is 6 volts, or you can go set 2 to 7.2 volts power going out. I don't want to burn out that servo, so I'm going to leave mine at 6. I don't know if it can handle that much juice with it burning and burn it out too quick, and I'm going to leave it at the 6 volts because it's rated at 6.6. The highest it'll go is for torque wise is 6.6 volts. And last but least, number 15 is your freewheeling. And number 15 I leave, and here I thought it was disabled, but I like to enable mine. So enable is number 1. It doesn't allow the truck to freewheel, so if you stop on a hill, it's not going to roll back on you. So I set that to 1. You go OK, and that's it. You're all done. So all your settings are done. And again, play with these. Once you're done, you just power off, and then you disconnect, and you're good to go, and you're all set. So that's it, guys. The chassis is complete and ready to go, and that's my remote, because I just turned off the receiver. And then that's a nice thing about that remote, it tells you that it's lost connection. And yeah, so there's the chassis all ready to go, all wired up, and I will do the motor change. For some reason, I'm not sure why it did that, and it's kind of strange to me. I've never had that. I've always done positive to positive and negative to negative from the ESC, and I've got the right forward. But I'm going to just swap those out, and I'll get that fixed up. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video of wiring up the chassis, and all that's left to do is wait for that hinge to come in, and we'll get that body done. So look for that in the future. I know it's on its way. I got some U.S. Postal updates that it's coming. It left California yesterday, I believe, so it's on its way, and I'm hoping to have it within a week. And then I can get this done and ready to go for Go Scale Day on May 1st that RC4WD Drive is putting on. So if you're into that type of enjoyment and getting out, and get out on the 1st of May and post some pictures and hashtag and tag RC4WD Drive and hashtag RC4WD Drive Go Scale Day, and you'll be entered into some draws. So yeah, so thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you at the next one when we get the body all put together and finished off and get this bad boy ready to go and out on the trails. So thanks for watching, and again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, make a comment, let me know what you think, let me know how you thought of my wiring and how I routed it. Again, I'm going to put that button probably underneath somewhere. I haven't figured out where yet. But I'm going to do it so that I can get to that on and off. It's a waterproof ESC, so I'm not too worried about it down there. And then I can get to it without taking the body off. So yeah, so thanks for watching, and everyone be safe, and we'll see you at the next one. Cheers.